Have you ever taken a train ride so beautiful that you didn't want the journey to end? That's exactly what the Bernina Express feels like. In today's video, we're experiencing what many people call the world's most beautiful train ride, traveling through the breathtaking Swiss Alps from Italy into Switzerland aboard the famous Bernina Express. And honestly, the views almost don't look real. From snow-covered mountains and crystal clear lakes to charming villages, massive glaciers, and dramatic bridges high in the Alps, this train journey is more than transportation. It's an experience you'll never forget. If you love scenic travel, bucket list adventures, or dream about exploring Europe in a slower, more relaxing way, you're going to love this ride. So sit back, relax, and let's experience the magic of the Bernina Express together. Before we begin the journey, let's talk about what makes the Bernina Express so special. The Bernina Express is a panoramic train operated by Switzerland's Rhaetian Railway. It travels through the Alps between Tirano, Italy, and destinations in Switzerland, including St. Moritz and Chur. For this journey, we're beginning in the Italian town of Tirano and traveling north into Switzerland towards St. Moritz. The portion between Tirano and St. Moritz is the heart of the Bernina line. There are also longer Bernina Express routes that continue beyond St. Moritz toward Chur. That extended journey includes even more tunnels, bridges, and famous Landwasser Viaduct. But the Tirano to St. Moritz section alone gives you an incredible transformation. To begin, surrounded by the warmer, almost Mediterranean scenery of northern Italy, the train climbs higher and higher until you're surrounded by glaciers, frozen lakes, and some of the most dramatic mountain scenery in Europe. And it does all of this without using a traditional rack and pinion system to pull the train up the mountain. Instead, the railway uses carefully designed curves, gradients, tunnels, and viaducts to climb naturally through the landscape. The Albula and Bernina railway lines became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2008, recognizing both the engineering and the way the railway was built into the surrounding alpine landscape. So you're not just riding through beautiful scenery, you're traveling along one of the world's most impressive historic railway routes. Our journey begins in Tirano, a small town in northern Italy near the Swiss border. Tirano is surrounded by mountains, vineyards, and quiet streets that feel completely different from the busy cities many travelers visit in Italy. It's also fairly easy to reach from places like Milan or Lake Como, which makes the Bernina Express a wonderful addition to a longer Italian vacation. But I would recommend giving yourself enough time in Tirano before the train departs. You don't want to arrive at the station stressed, dragging your luggage behind you, and wondering whether you're about to miss one of the most beautiful train rides in the world. Come early, have a coffee, walk around the town, and enjoy one last Italian pastry before heading into Switzerland. Because once you see the bright red train waiting at the platform, the excitement really starts to build. The Bernina Express immediately stands out. The train's large panoramic windows extend toward the roof, giving you a much wider view of the mountains than you'd have from a standard train. And once everyone finds their seats, stores their luggage, and starts looking through those enormous windows, there's a shared feeling inside the carriage. Everyone knows they're about to experience something special. As the train leaves Tirano, it doesn't immediately feel like you're entering the wilderness. At first, the railway travels through neighborhoods and long local streets. You pass homes, shops, gardens, and everyday life in northern Italy. In some places, the train feels so close to the surrounding buildings that you can almost reach out and touch them. Then, little by little, the town begins to disappear. The houses become more scattered, the mountains get closer, and the railway begins to climb toward Switzerland. Crossing the border itself feels surprisingly understated. There isn't necessarily a giant sign or dramatic announcement. One moment you're in Italy, and shortly afterward you're traveling through the Swiss region of Val Pasquiavo. Even though the border crossing may feel simple, remember to carry your passport or acceptable identification with you. You are traveling between two countries, and officials can request your documents. This is one reason I love train travel through Europe. You can move between countries without airport security lines, baggage carousels, or long highway drives. You simply sit by the window and watch the country slowly transform into another. One of the first major highlights appears near the village of Brusio. The Brusio circular viaduct is one of the most recognizable sights along the entire Bernina route. And when you first see it, you may wonder why the railway suddenly begins turning in a circle, and the answer is elevation. The circular design allows the train to gain height gradually without making the climb too steep. The train curves across the stone arches, circles around, and passes beneath part of the route it has just traveled. It's beautiful to look at, but it's also an incredibly clever piece of engineering. Because the train bends so dramatically, you may be able to see other carriages curving around the viaduct ahead of you or behind you. This is one of those moments when everyone suddenly lifts their cameras, and honestly, I don't blame them. Just remember to look up from the screen too. Sometimes we become so focused on recording a beautiful place that we forget to actually experience it. After Brusio, the train continues into the Pasquiavo Valley. This part of the journey feels peaceful and almost storybook-like. You pass small villages, church towers, traditional homes, farms, and fields surrounded by mountains. The town of Pasquiavo is especially charming. Its colorful buildings and narrow streets make it look like a place where you could easily spend a quiet afternoon walking around and doing absolutely nothing productive. And sometimes that's exactly what a vacation should include. This is where the Bernina Express begins to show how much variety can fit into one relatively short journey. You're not only seeing mountains, you're seeing how people live within those mountains. You pass homes built into valleys, farms, sitting beneath the huge peaks, and villages that feel protected from the outside world. The train then travels near Lake Pasquiavo. On a calm day, the lake reflects surrounding slopes so clearly that it becomes difficult to tell where the mountains end and the water begins. And all you have to do to see it is to sit back and look out the window. No hiking boots, no difficult climb, no cable car. Just a comfortable seat and a front row view. As the train climbs beyond the valley, you start to notice the landscape changing more quickly. The trees become thinner, the villages become smaller, and the mountains begin to feel much closer. The railway twists back and forth across the slopes, revealing new views every few minutes. One moment you're looking down into the green valley, the next you're staring across at a wall of rock and ice. Then the train reaches Alp Groom. Alp Groom is one of the most dramatic locations along the route. From here, you can look down over the Pasquiavo Valley while also seeing the Palu Glacier across the mountains. The glacier looks enormous from a distance, flowing between the peaks like a frozen river. And depending on the season and weather, the entire scene can look completely different. In summer, you may see green slopes beneath the ice. In autumn, the valley begins filling with gold and orange. In winter, almost everything may be covered in snow. And during spring, you can sometimes see a mixture of all four seasons within the same view. This is also where you begin to understand just how much elevation the train has gained since leaving Toronto. The warm Italian valley now looks far below you. The scenery has become wilder, the air outside is colder, and the journey begins to feel less like a comfortable train ride and more like an expedition through the Alps. Except you're still sitting in a heated carriage, possibly eating a snack, which is definitely my preferred way to experience an expedition. The train continues toward Lago Bianco, or the White Lake. The color of water can change depending on weather, light, and season. Sometimes it appears pale blue, sometimes it looks almost turquoise, and during winter it may be completely frozen and covered in snow. Near Lago Bianco, the train reaches Ospizio Bernina, the highest point on the Bernina railway line at approximately 2,253 meters, or about 7,392 feet above sea level. Think about how much the scenery has changed. We began in an Italian town with vineyards, cafes, and a relatively mild climate. Now we're traveling beside a high alpine lake surrounded by snow, rock, and glaciers. We reached it without changing trains. And what makes this journey feel almost unreal? You're not simply looking at one beautiful view for several hours. You're watching entire environments change outside your window. This is often one of the quietest moments inside the carriage. People stop talking, cameras lower for a few seconds, and everyone simply watches the certain views that don't require narration. They remind you how big the world is and how little most of us have actually seen. After crossing the highest point, the train begins descending toward the upper Engadin region of Switzerland, but the scenery doesn't become less impressive. You pass a collection of small mountain lakes, rugged peaks, and open alpine landscapes. The train moves through areas that feel remote enough to be hours from civilization. Then suddenly another village appears. Along the route, you may catch views of the Bernina Massif and the Morterasch Glacier. The Morterasch Glacier is one of the largest glaciers in the Eastern Alps, and seeing it from the train gives you another sense of the scale of this landscape. It doesn't look like something created for tourists. It feels wild, powerful, and very real. As the train descends, trees begin returning. You pass through forests and areas near Pontresina, another beautiful Swiss mountain town. Pontresina is a great place to stay for travelers who want access to hiking, skiing, and glacier excursions without necessarily staying in the center of St. Moritz. And this is another reason the Bernina route deserves more than a rush day trip. The train ride may be the main attraction, but the towns and landscapes along the way can easily become part of a longer itinerary. You could spend time in Toronto, stop in Paskievo, stay near Pontresina, and then finish in St. Moritz. That turns one scenic train ride into a slower, more meaningful journey through two countries. Eventually, the landscape begins opening around the Engadin Valley, and you approach St. Moritz, is known as one of Switzerland's most famous mountain resorts. It's elegant, polished, and surrounded by incredible natural scenery. During winter, it's known for skiing, snow-covered landscapes, and upscale hotels. During summer, the lake and surrounding mountains become popular for hiking, cycling, and outdoor activities. But arriving here by train feels especially appropriate. After traveling from the warmer landscapes of Italy, crossing valleys, climbing past glaciers, and reaching the top of Bernina Pass, St. Moritz feels like a true destination. When the train finally enters the station, you may feel excited to explore, but you may also feel a little disappointed that the ride is over, because unlike most transportation, the Bernina Express isn't something you simply tolerate until you arrive. The journey is the part you came to experience, and that changes the way you think about travel. So, is the Bernina Express worth adding to your European vacation? Absolutely. But there are several things you should know before booking it. First, understand the difference between your train ticket and your seat reservation. On the panoramic Bernina Express, you normally need a valid ticket for the route and a separate seat reservation. Some rail passes may cover the transportation portion, but the Bernina Express reservation is generally still required. Always check the current rules for your specific ticket or rail pass before you travel. Second, book early if you're traveling during the popular summer months or holiday periods. The train has limited panoramic seating, and the most desirable dates can fill quickly. Third, don't bring more luggage than you realistically need. Luggage racks are available, but space can be limited. This is not the time to arrive with 4 giant suitcases and hope everyone else will somehow make room. Packing lighter will make boarding and exiting much easier. Fourth, bring your passport or appropriate identification. You are crossing an international border, even though the journey may feel seamless. Fifth, bring water and a few snacks. Food and drinks may be available for purchase and served at your seat, but it's helpful to have something with you, especially if you have dietary restrictions. Sixth, think about photography before the train starts moving. The panoramic windows are wonderful for viewing the scenery, but reflections can make photographs difficult. Wear darker clothing if possible, turn off unnecessary interior lights near your seat, and hold your camera closer to the glass to reduce reflections, and clear your phone camera lens. That tiny step can make a surprisingly large difference. Finally, don't assume the panoramic Bernina Express is your only option. Regional trains travel along the same Bernina line. The official panoramic train provides the classic reserved seat experience with large windows, but regional services can offer greater flexibility for travelers who want to stop in the towns along the route. Your best choice depends on the type of experience you want. Do you want to sit back and enjoy the entire journey in one reserved seat? Or would you rather slow down, stop along the way, and turn the route into a multi-day adventure? There really isn't one right answer. The Bernina Express is a reminder that sometimes the best travel experiences happen when we stop trying to reach a destination as quickly as possible. You could fly over these mountains, you could drive through parts of the region, but neither experience would allow you to watch the scenery change this way. From the streets of Toronto to the circular viaduct at Bruzio, through the Poschiavo Valley, past glaciers and mountain lakes, and finally into San Moritz. Every part of the journey feels different, and yet it all connects naturally. That's what makes the Bernina Express more than a beautiful train ride. It gives you permission to slow down, to look out the window, and enjoy the space between where you started and where you're going. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Would you rather experience the Bernina Express during the summer, when the valleys are green and the lakes are visible, or during the winter, when the entire route is covered in snow? And would you begin in Italy and travel towards Switzerland, or start in Switzerland and finish with Italian food and wine in Toronto? Tell me which version of the journey you would choose in the comments below. I'll be reading the comments, and your answers may help me decide which scenic train journey we should explore in a future video. And if you enjoyed traveling through the Alps with me today, Please like this video, subscribe to Traveler's Delight, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next adventure. Because building a wonderful life is important, but taking the time to experience the world is part of living it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next journey.